going to go to the Parachute Emerger. When one thinks of parachutes, they think of a post with hackle wrapped around it. On this particular fly, that's basically what has been done, but we're going to do it in a little bit different way just to show you another way of doing parachutes. So let's get a hook in here. And we're just using a standard Scud Caddis curved hook. And when you first start with these curved hooks, it helps if you have your hook eye down to begin with when you do tighten your shuck and body material. Once we have our hook in the vise, what we're going to do is pick up our thread. To attach our thread right up in the thorax, just like so, and we snip off our excess. Now we're ready to tie in our trailing shuck material. Just like the previous fly, we're once again going to use some Z-Lon. Since we're going to be basically dealing throughout the tape with the Baetis family, the first one was a blue-winged olive. This one's going to be a pale morning dun color. So once again, we're going to want a brown trailing shuck. So we'll just snip out a little bit of the Z-Lon. And you just twist it together like we did before, so it hangs together. Even it up, and now we're ready to tie it in. And we started up in the thorax, and we're just going to wrap back and down the bend a little ways. And just let that hang there. Then we're ready for our body material. For the body material, on this fly what we're going to be using is D-rib. D-rib is a semicircular synthetic tubing type material, which is flat on one side and semicircular on the other. So we're going to want that D shape to be on top. That way when we wrap it forward, we're going to have some nice segmentation. And we're going to tie in our tubing, or our D-rib here, up to the thorax. Now we're ready to wrap the body material forward. And we're just going to want to wrap one right in front of the other. And depending on what size hook you're using, you can vary the tension on this stuff. It's very stretchable. So for the small size, you can tie anything from a size 16 down to a 22, just by the amount of tension that you put onto the material. Get up to the thorax and we're ready to tie it off. This particular color is the pheasant tail color, just because we're going to make this into a PMD emerger. It's kind of a rusty brown color. Make sure it's tied down good. And before we stand our hook up, we might as well just come in here and trim our shuck so it's about half the length of the hook shank. Now since we're going to start working on the thorax area, we're going to stand the hook back up in the jaws of the vise, just like so, just so it's a lot easier to work with. For the wing, what we're going to be using is some CDC. But the CDC will also be our wing case and post for our hackle. So let's select a couple CDC feathers. And we'll use about 3 of them for this one, just so we have a nice full wing. Even up the tips, kind of bundle it together, and we're going to come up here for a measurement. I'm going to hold it at the hook eye, and I basically want it to go just a little beyond the end of the hook. So I'll grab that with my right hand and I'll tie that down at the back of the thorax. Take several turns of thread, make sure it's tied in there good. trim off our excess. Now before we do anything else, we're going to tie in our hackle. For the hackle, what I'm going to use is one of Whiting's Pale Morning Dun dyed saddles. And so we'll just pull off some of the fibers so we have a nice place to tie it in with, just like so. And then we can go on to our thorax. The thing about Pale Morning Dun Emergers, the body's kind of a rusty color, yet the thorax is a cream to a light yellow color. So for that, what we're going to be using is the microfine dubbing, but we're going to use the sulfur yellow color. Now we get some on here. And we're not going to need a whole lot. Since we're dealing with a Pale Morning Dun, generally the sizes you're going to be using for this was going to be around the 16 to 18 range. I'm going to cover up our thorax a little bit here. Now we're going to wrap our hackle. And for our post, what we're going to do is use our wing case and our CDC. And just take a few turns of the hackle around here. Don't need a whole lot. And you just tie it off like you would any normal parachute. Come in there and tie it down. And we're ready to take off our hackle. And just to cover up where we tied off everything, we're going to add a little more dubbing. And that'll put the finishing touches to our thorax. One thing to keep in mind is when you use these curved hooks, you want to make sure that you stand them straight up and make sure that you clamp down on the vise so it doesn't pull down like what just happened to me, and you accidentally pull off your thread and lose your hackle and you have to start all over again. And we'll just finish up our thorax just like so. Now what we're going to do is pull our next what we're going to do is pull our wing forward, which is going to create our wing case. Tie it down right behind the hook eye. And then we're going to wrap back just a little bit. And you pull the CDC back. And then you want to get some of that hackle out of there as well. And tie it down once again. So what you're doing is creating a little bulbous head as well as a little CDC wing. And if you get some hackle in there, just come in and trim it out of there. Just like so. And then we're ready to whip finish it off. We'll come in here and place a whip finish on here. And we're ready to take our thread off. Once our thread's off, the fly is complete. As you can tell, the difference in the length of the wing from the one I just did versus the one we started with, it all has to depend on how long you let the wing be when you first tie it in. But what makes this fly work so well is the manner in which the hackle was wrapped around the CDC. When you look at it from the underside, it looks like the hackle is an actual part of the thorax area, making it look more like legs, and that's just making it look a little more natural to the fish as it hangs in the surface film. And that's what I like to call a parachute emerger.